I only put this image to begin. This was the opening page of one of the catalogs for my show. It was about 7 years ago, but it seemed kind of prescient that I would have this thing about the hands right there. I can return to this quote later, but it's a great quote.
Maybe read it? I don't
Just read it out loud.
Sure, I was going to read it out loud later, but I can do that. It should be noted that the fingers are not born with brains. These develop gradually with the passage of time and with the help of what the eyes see. The help of the eyes is important as what is seen through them. That is why the fingers have always excelled at uncovering what is concealed. Anything in the brain, in our head, that appears to have an instinctive, magical, or supernatural quality, whatever that may mean, is taught to it by the small brains in our fingers. For example, if the brain in our head suddenly gets an idea for a painting, a sculpture, a piece of music or literature, or a clay figurine, it simply sends a signal to that effect and then waits to see what will happen. So I thought that was such a cool quote, I had to put it in my catalog. I'm going to quote someone else right now. I read in a short essay in the New York Times by the novelist Jhumpa Lahiri. Some of you may have read some of her work. She was writing about writing, literally about writing, and she said that the impulse to convert experience into a group of words in grammatical relation to one another is the most basic, ongoing impulse in my life. And I can certainly say that the most fundamental impulse in my own life is to convert my feelings and experiences into lines, marks, shapes, colors in grammatical relation to one another. But most importantly, she went on to say, I love this quote. I'm going to say it slowly so it will sink into you because I think it encapsulates everything. She said, surely it is a magical thing that a handful of words, artfully arranged, can stop time. That they can conjure a person, a place, a situation in all its specificity and dimensions. But only certain sentences shift and breathe like live matter and soil, which I thought was so cool. That sort of gets into the synesthesia. That a piece of writing, a sentence, can shift it like live matter and soil. So I think that gets to the heart of everything, that I think it is so rare for authors in any creative field to really create something that has an authentic life of its own. I think that I should start moving these slides. That's Van Gogh, obviously. I think the best drawings, and I really do believe this, it sounds rhetorical and everything, but I think the best drawings function like inscrutable machinery. They're literally like machines. They can hold a charge like a capacitor in a machine. For thousands of years, as a matter of fact, as long as the drawing exists, it has that capacity. A drawing can embody the feelings and intentions of the maker. Really, the drawing functions like a flash drive. I mean, all you do is bring your optic nerves close to it, and all this data just jumps over into your head. I think. It certainly helps if it's the real drawing. This isn't necessarily a live link here. This is a beautiful drawing by Leonardo. I share mutual love of Leonardo and Michelangelo. That's a drawing by Mondrian. So, what's incredible is that the artist can imbue this drawing, this thing they're working on, with their own state of mind. And it's within the affect. It's the affect of the signifiers, the marks and the lines, grammatically arranged. It's in that affect that they can elicit and evoke kinesthetic, tactile, synesthetic sensations in the eyes of the beholder. A great drawing not only allows you to understand what the artist is depicting or showing you, but also how to feel. It brings up another wonderful quote. The famous lyricist, Edgar Harburg. Yip Harburg, I think he was known for. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him. He, among other great things, wrote Over the Rainbow, which actually happens to be, according to many polls taken, the #1 vocal recording of the entire 20th century. He said, music comes naturally. It's an extension of the emotions. It's in the vested interest of the heart, a very ancient organ. Words have to be worked at slowly and memorized. It's in the vested interest of the frontal lobe, which is a more recent development. He said, magic in song happens when words give destination to music, and music gives wings to the words. Music makes you feel feelings. Words makes you think thoughts. So a song can make you feel a thought, which I think is profound. And I think similarly drawings can do that. I think in very special instances, I think the charcoal, paint, gesso, materials, graphite, ink, work like chemical catalysts. They sort of form these occult reactions that directly embody the state of mind of the maker. This is V.G. Clemens. This is graphite. How tactile that thing is. This drawing, it's a kind of a weak reproduction. You know what? I'm kind of proud of certain things about this. The images I'm showing, it's astounding. Where's my iPhone's over there? But I took most of these with my phone, and it's still pretty rich. It's incredible. It doesn't matter. But I think this drawing for me does that sort of synesthetic thing that I can sort of hear. You know that kind of like that low hissing when the tide is being sucked back in? It like comes and hits the beach but sucks back in. I can sort of hear that sound. Of course, there's Van Gogh. Talk about tactile. I mean, I always hate it in my classroom. Some of our models have these copious beards. And my students, if we're doing portraits or the figure drawing, they try to approach the beard, and it's always a nightmare. It's just like, how do you draw a beard? I don't know. It's tough. But, I mean, Van Gogh does it in such a way that, I mean, if you were just like a little aphid, you could figure out how to, it's like topography. It's very tactile. You can map your way up that beard. There's handholds and footholds and ledges. And, I mean, in his magical way, he creates this head that is so incredibly solid. This is a drawing by Rodin. It's beautiful. It just has so much wonderful, I mean, so many wonderful contrasts. It has specificity and gesture and openness and color, but that drawing, I mean, it sort of gives you a visual massage in your head. Who's that? That's Annette, but of course it's a drawing by Giacometti. Now see, Giacometti's really cool. I mean, he takes these long, slender brushes And with swaths of white and gray and black, he literally, he rides on the surfaces of these forms. I mean, he scoops out eye sockets and he pulls out the bridge of the nose and incises the edge of a jawbone. I mean, he works these things over and over and over again, and the paint becomes so increasingly agitated and animated that when he finally just puts the brushes down, he was never done with anything, but when he just moved on to something else, these paintings take on they have such a physical and psychic presence. It's remarkable. Look at that, it's from my iPhone. It's just like looking at one of my books at Jacqueline and just getting it real close. That's pretty cool, huh? This technology. But, you know, some students just like they look at a reproduction of a Jacqueline, but they don't really see that. Now that sums up this whole symposium, doesn't it? I mean, seriously, doesn't it? I mean, there's the brain, there's the hand, and look at that energetic, crazy gesture between the hand and the head. I mean, it's remarkable. It's unbelievable. But you can just feel the grip on that Connie crayon. But just that swooping, energetic, it's like spiritual psychic energy going down from the head into the hand. And like Tom sort of wanted some of you to kind of like put up your hands and hide things. If you just hide that faint diagonal line, which is her drawing pad, the drawing isn't nearly as complete. It's not nearly as beautiful without that diagonal line there. When I teach in the classroom, I love to invent words, and I just kind of do it, and I keep going on like it really is a word, and some of the students look kind of puzzled. But like last year, I kept using the word, well, they prismatified it. Like I just said, prismatify. I invented this word because if you think about it, I mean, Kolowitz, she's looking at something. We all have a unique prism. She's casting what she's seeing through herself, through this prism, and it's refracted and comes back to us in a way that's more real than the thing she's looking at. It's just remarkable. I think Caleb had this very drawing as he introduced the afternoon panel. In another person's hands, this could become sort of a really maudlin, very, very difficult subject to draw. I don't know that anyone else could ever touch that kind of subject like this. I mean, I know there's plenty, of course, there's many pietas, but this is different. This is a small child. And it's just such a remarkably powerful drawing in every respect. Just to feel the inert brain in the child's head and the agony in the brain of the woman. And I dare say, Tom, that she sculpted out those legs better than even Michelangelo might have. I mean, those are pretty freaking awesome. Who did this drawing? Anybody guess? Yes. That's not a... See, I did that with my phone, too. So, in a drawing like this, I mean, it might be considered a painting, but it's a lot of charcoal and everything in this. I think it's a drawing. To me, the word storm just sort of stands passively beside this piece of paper, where instantly out of nowhere, the charcoal and the paint whip up this frenzied, squally turbulence, you know? It's amazing how it's like this physical artifact, this drawing, becomes a preternatural transmitter. It really does. I wanted to go back for a minute. There's a quote that gets to a little bit of this by Philip Guston. I don't have any Guston's drawings in here. Look at that. That's a beautiful storm by Leonardo. A sanguine Connie crayon. Storm approaching a little village. Anyway, Philip Guston, this was recorded from a conversation he had. He said, you know, I was in Washington, D.C. the other day. I was in the National Gallery looking at that very late self-portrait by Rembrandt. Well, I was looking at it, and finally, I just didn't know what I was looking at. I mean, next to it was a portrait by Van Dyck. And I said, well, there's a portrait of a man, but what is the Rembrandt? There's this ambiguity of image being paint and paint being image that is incredibly mysterious. Like, he just was completely perplexed about this Rembrandt painting. And I remember I have a beautiful, like a really nice thick book of all of Guston's transcripts, all the stuff he said in critiques and in interviews and everything else. And that particular little quote really meant something to me. And I didn't quite understand it until I saw another quote one day by the poet Stephen Spender, the British poet. He said, if I can get this right, sometimes when I'm writing, the music of the words that I'm trying to craft take me to a place beyond the words. I sense a rhythm, a dance, a fury that is as yet empty of words. So that's again the paint, image, paint. It's that amazingly weird area where things become alchemical and take on mysterious possibilities. It's another beautiful drawing of a storm by Leonardo. We know who did this drawing, right? Cy Twombly, yes. Another Twombly. I have the good fortune, I know the poet Robert Pinsky, he puts it beautifully. I mean, he illuminates everything I'm trying to say right now in a very concise statement. He says, art is taking some physical material and making it appear to have a soul. That's a Pollock I took recently at the MoMA. It's actually fairly small. It's a drawing. So I'm just showing you some interesting, different approaches. Another Twombly. A Susan Rothenberg drawing. William Kentridge. This is a woman from Australia, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name, but I love this drawing of a dog. Who's that, Tom? The guy.
Yeah, it's Tommaso.
There he is. That's right. That's the guy you
Probably
talked about.
Gary, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Tommaso at age 23.
Look at the tactility of that beautiful drawing. I mean, that's remarkable. You can feel the cloth, the flesh. Michelangelo didn't do very many portraits. Not very many. Leonardo. Can you feel the machinery I'm talking about? What is it, 600 years old? I don't know. It's a machine. I talk to my students all the time about this tactile thing and the sense of touch. And in drawing, to sort of coordinate your eye with the tip of what you're drawing with, and imagine that Conti, that charcoal, that whatever, eraser, is literally interfacing, touching the surface. It's very intimate, but we have so many nerve endings in our fingers. Like, there's like 10,000 of them in each eye. I don't know, one of the scientists probably knows. But there's such a different type of intimate information one gets from a drawing approach that way. I'm just looking at this baby's back, and I'm just feeling that. And I'm feeling how this sort of turgid kind of flesh, that sort of real beautiful, muscly, fatty flesh. That's Jenny Seville. I thought that was a fairly tactile drawing. I have a couple reclining figures here to show you, the 4 in a row, to show you some different approaches. This is called something like Carl sick in bed, which I think certainly embodies or evokes that sensation of being sick. Here's a different approach. Beautiful drawing. The head's a tiny bit too big, but otherwise it's gorgeous drawing.
You have to remember she was standing above.
Okay. But look at the beautiful contour in that drawing. I don't know this artist. But I'm just trying to show you 4 different approaches. That's Ang. Well, I'm going to have to bite the bullet and start showing something of my own, maybe. That's one of my drawings of a head. That's my neighbor, actually. And he looks like that, I promise. At least he did then. In fact, his name is Scad. It's a marvelous man. That's a copy. That's a plaster head I had. It's a perfect replica of Donatello, of a famous Donatello bust, and I did a bunch of drawings of it. This is a friend of mine named Greg. I'm beginning to feel, I'm realizing that my drawings out there in the gallery almost have something to do with these too.
Yeah.
These sort of wormy lines. This is me pleading. It's not a self-portrait actually, but you know, I do feel like a medieval alchemist in the studio. I mean, it's just all this inert stuff. I mean, charcoal is the most primitive substance there is. I mean, we drew with it 50,000 years ago. It's just charred wood, and I just have it on my floor, and I'm just begging and pleading this stuff to somehow arrange itself grammatically in some type of form that can channel and generate sensations and feelings, just even a faint pulse, just anything. I mean, I go through thousands and well, I should say hundreds of rehearsals on these drawings, and sometimes if I'm lucky, I think I've pretty much cultivated a muscle memory. Sometimes I can almost close my eyes and do the drawing, and if I'm lucky, I sort of step out of my own way, a marvelous thing will happen, and the drawing will make itself. So that's an interesting thing to talk about, this muscle memory idea. That's just a close-up, showing a little bit more of the tactile. So I'm always poking and pulling and daubing and scraping and erasing and rinsing. These are some drawings that I did. I'm going to show, I think there's going to be an x-ray picture, and I hope it doesn't offend anyone. It's not like bloody or anything, but I don't want it to shock anyone. But I had it sort of has to do with the work out there. I kind of wanted to take a moment to sort of explain why my work went in such a radically sort of different direction that's out there in the wall from these portraits. I did dozens of these drawings I'm going to show you right here. And much like Tom, I start with a very beautiful, heavy, 600-pound piece of paper, 600-pound weight paper, not like it weighs 600 pounds, but it's thick. It's like the mat on your car. It's like a car mat kind of thing. But I abuse it so horribly that I punch holes in it eventually with erasers and sanding it down so that I have to repair it all the time. So there's all kinds of holes in the drawing all over the place. But I did these drawings while I was convalescing from what's called an ankle fusion. I had to have my right ankle fused. So I was confined to a chair for an entire summer. I mean, unlike when you get like a knee replaced or a hip replaced, they want you to get up walking like the next morning from an operation like that. But with this, you literally just can't even put your foot on the ground for like 3 months because your bones are like growing together. So it's like a whole different weird thing. So I was just stationary in a chair doing all these drawings. Well, that's a beautiful, yeah, I was going to quote that thing, the Sarah Mungo quote about the brains and the fingers and stuff with that Leonardo drawing. I'll get to the other drawings in a minute. I wanted to show you some student drawings. I found this in the New York Times. The New Yorker. I thought it was really funny. Can everybody read that? Well, well, well. It seems that in 1974, while rendering a figure in charcoal, you failed to first block in major shadows and masses to gain an overall feel for the composition, and instead dove right into facial details. I just thought it was really funny. So, anyway, that might have been actually one of my demos at the beginning. But these are student drawings. So I try to, I'm trying to give you some ideas that I have them practice what I preach. About sensing weight and stress, thinking about volume and working with velocity and speed. That has a sort of kinesthetic quality. I feel like the drawing has an animus to it. It really has life. So I just randomly chose drawings that my students have made. These are anywhere from freshmen to seniors. I don't know if you can.
He's undergrad or grad student?
These are undergrad. Yeah. This student did this in about half an hour. I don't know if you can really, can everyone see, it's a reclining model. She's reading a book. I do really crazy things. I tie skeletons up like hovering over the models and things. There's the picture of the ankle fusion. That's literally my ankle. So I got to get those wonderful screws in there. I just put the x-ray in there to show. So this was the chair I was confined to. It's just like an old 1950s chair. I had crutches and, casts and all that kind of stuff, but that's the studio floor, and I'm a very messy artist, so I was doing these portrait drawings, but I typically just kind of like throw them on the floor. I just finish a drawing and I toss it on the floor. Inadvertently, I was swiveling and moving and pushing this chair all around, picking up all the hideous detritus all over the floor and making tracks on the paper. And I started to discover that, and I don't know, maybe it was a painful discovery. I felt like I was being more inventive and it was cooler on the floor than what I was trying to do. Which I guess it can piss me off, but on the other hand, maybe it's serendipity. So then this was the sort of progenitor of other machines. I took this 80-pound rock. It was an 80-pound rock, and I put it on the chair and just started pushing the chair around. So this was actually like last year, right about now. This was like probably early April last year when I first started thinking about this crazy idea. And of course, I wouldn't let anyone in my studio. I didn't want anyone to see what I was doing. I thought it was crazy. Like my kids would hear this chair going, and they were like, "What's Dad doing?" I don't know. So these are just pictures of sort of the studio and the floor. That's a picture of the floor. The floor's cool. I want to get the floor. In fact, I just went to Home Depot and I got this huge roller that you're supposed to seed lawns with. It's like you fill it with water and you go like this and you push it. And I was trying to make like monotypes from my floor. It didn't quite work. I should have put a picture of that in there. So these are like the different pigments and stuff I'll throw. And I mash this stuff up. I sometimes buy colored types of charcoal and just crush it up and put it down. So these again are examples of what's going on the floor. Now see, damn it, that's a picture of the floor. I love that. I wish I had that again in drawing. Somebody here has to tell me how I can get that. So think about it. There's got to be a way.
Pour some slabs, man.
Slabs of concrete. Yeah, that'd be real great. That'd be really heavy, huh? So that's sort of an example of how I just throw things on the floor. just tossing stuff all over the place. It wasn't like a posed photo. So that is my cast of characters. These are my machines that I've created to make some of these lines. And it's funny, but a lot of those cement objects, Kelly can attest to this, they used to be subject matter for me. I used to use them in my work, and now they're kind of making the drawings. It's weird. You can attest to it, yeah. So again, these are just examples of stuff on the wall. All these drawings are always complete. I don't have a single one of the drawings that looks like that anymore. They've all changed. This is all different. But these are examples. That's, probably like 7 feet tall. So it's pretty big. That's actually, that one is part of the one that's out there in the gallery. I just added something else to it and turned it in a different direction. That's in the, it's not a very good, see, it's from my phone. But that's the one out in the entryway. So for those of you, I did include edited versions of those 2 movies. And I guess this isn't connected up to the sound, but my friend and I just did this in a completely unpreconceived way. I love the sound of the wood. It's creaking to death. And I've screwed about 8 wheels underneath that platform thing. There's a whole bunch of wheels under there. Yeah. He just had this little tiny camera. I was just working. He was following me around, so.
Are you visualizing what you're drawing?
Not exactly, not for a while, but they go through so many edits. I mean, I really, I change them so often with paint. I go over the surfaces with spray paint many dozens of times, so I eventually get to where I want to be with them. This is just sort of, I think I'm just sort of creating the raw material. Just the turbulence of these marks. Sorry? No, not exactly. But that's a good question. We can talk about it. I'm not sure how much time I have left. Probably gone into time. Come on. All right. This is going to be over in a second. When we put the camera down on this chair. Then I think so, I'll just only show you 10 seconds. I just want you to know that the machines, like now I've invented new ways of drawing. Some of you saw this in the gallery last night. But I adapted all those heavy things now into sort of a mono wheel thing where I'm making single lines. So this is a way that I'm starting to make the drawings with single lines. This one weighs about 100 pounds. So thank you very much.